Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 204, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/204. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. David,
Sir.
Do you want to tell the people why tomorrow, being 2 weeks from one of the more momentous days in recent American history, we are just now discussing the topic of the Trump assassination and some of the other things that happened since then? I leave it to you to explain ourselves.
Well, I was gonna, tiptoe through the tulips on this one, Dane, but it seems like you took that away from me. So thank you very much. You're always
Band-Aid
a gracious
off, buddy.
You're always a gracious co-host in that way. Apparently Dane can take off to go travel around the world, see all the sights, sounds, and rickety-racketa that the world has to offer. But when David has a family affair of a one-time only event that he can't make it that Friday, of course that Friday we have to discuss. I think we were rummaging around for things to make up for that week, and the next day after we recorded the special episode, let's just recap what had happened the week that we were off. The week that we were off, the literal next day, Trump gets shot at, but you fucking missed. Anyway, within that same week, we get the will they, won't they, should he not step down, and then he does. It was like the Nixon thing. It was like Nixon gave us something and then walked away crying. And that was like the first time any any president had ever shown emotion like that on screen. And the nation wept. Like Biden put out a tweet that I'm sure he didn't type up himself. There's no
because it
fucking way.
made sense. Kind
Yeah,
of.
exactly. It was like in the right context, and he wasn't referring to planes in 1929. And then on top of that, within the same calendar week, Kamala Harris steps up to become
Joe Biden steps down.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. He stepped down in a tweet. That was the whole tweet. Yeah, so he steps down in a tweet. He can't even come out and be like, my fellow Americans, I'm just going to throw it up on X and be done with it all. And then Kamala Harris, Dane, did you know? She's like really smart. I don't know if you've heard.
She's
like one of the smartest people ever. And we're so lucky to have a female black candidate for this office that's so qualified to be in that office, by the way.
Listen, I just want to put this out for all the memes in all the world, because I say this to my close friends and family all the time, or people that, even don't know me that well, but at least get to know me personally, about, you're a lawyer, it's a good achievement, that's difficult, that's whatever. And I always tell them that, being a lawyer is not a particular, it has a certain aura within the society, but I feel that's kind of unearned. Because you don't have to be that bright to do it. You just have to be able to do mind-numbingly boring shit for very, very long periods of time. And you too can make it through law school and pass the bar. And if you doubt that, or if you think I'm just being, a little bit overly humble and you're annoyed by that or whatever, I see you and raise you Kamala Harris. Possibly one of the dumbest people in the public eye, and is an attorney, at least by career standards in terms of becoming the district attorney of a state, California. She's a successful one, I guess, if you define success that way. So, if you have attorneys in your life, right, whatever pedestal you have them on, take them down a few notches, okay? Well, it's not that impressive.
Dane, what Kamala Harris proves is what the liberals have been after for so long, that as long as you have the right color skin and you're the right sex, you can achieve anything in this country. I think that's what they've been going after, right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, especially, listen, what I said holds true even in a merit-based society, but, fast forward to our DEI, your content of your character is overridden by your immutable characteristics that you didn't choose. In that society, it's even less impressive. So again, like I said,
making a joke
maybe,
about
maybe keep the
racism
doctors,
and sexism.
maybe keep the doctors on the pedestal, some of them, not the ones that just do whatever Big Pharma tells them to do, but, maybe they have earned their place in the society revering them. Lawyers, not so much. A lot of them are not very impressive people. And some of them even get all the way up to vice president and have the opportunity to run for president, even though nobody voted for them. So,
Dan, I think you missed my joke, but it's okay.
Right.
I still love you.
I often do.
Hopefully they didn't. Anyway, so what are we talking about today, Dan? Are we circling back like Jen Psaki on the assassination attempt? Are we just shitting on Kamala the entire time?
Yes, we are Jen Psaki circling back, even though it's, it'll be more than 2 weeks by the time the memes see this. Too monumentous of an event. And, we could have kind of hid the ball and say we planned it this way. We stayed mute on it for a couple weeks on purpose because we wanted to let things develop and look at the picture more holistically out of journalistic integrity.
Dane, okay, we aren't Fox News. All right, we do the right thing here. Sometimes,
although that was not our intent, I will say this: that there is some value in that of not rushing to be first. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is one good way to avoid foot and mouth disease. But
emotional decisions are never good.
It also
let the
allows
emotions
you
calm down a little bit, right?
It also allows you to look at the events more holistically and kind of analyze them in a more complete way than when you are just trying to be the first to say something on a topic. So we're a couple weeks late. We apologize for that. But I think you're going to or you're going to enjoy at least our take on it for what that's worth.
And before we jump into the subject matter of tonight, I just want to make it so it was not lost on us that the last episode that we pre-recorded, we were, would you call it reacting to? I think the kids are calling it nowadays.
Yeah.
The Joy Reid video where she was saying that Donald J. Trump, if he becomes president, can just tell SEAL Team 6 to assassinate his political rivals?
No, Biden can. She was saying Trump can if he does, but Biden probably should.
And it was so weird that the next day after we record that, all of a sudden we're like, what the fuck? So you get what you ask for there, Democrats.
Yeah. So here's the breakdown of the show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're first going to try to give you as objective as we possibly can, minimal editorializing the timeline of events on that fateful day. Then we'll give you what the Secret Service, what claims they made about whether they did or did not do a good job. We'll then discuss a little bit of the reaction to the reaction to the events from the left, because people's actions show you a window into their soul better than their words ever could. And then we'll do the reaction from the right. And then we will end with David and I's take, because let's be honest, folks, that's what you're all here for. What do Dane and David think about historical event X?
All 10,000
we're going to let you know.
Queuing up.
That's right. So moving on to the first part of the show, the timeline of events. So what happened on that day? I think, what was it, July 13th, 2024. So Trump is in Butler, Pennsylvania. He's speaking at a rally in the early evening between 5 and 6 p.m. I think at 6 p.m. is when he started speaking. And for several minutes, about an hour before the shots were fired, both federal and local law enforcement witnessed the shooter kind of milling about. There was even some reports after the fact that the local law enforcement had seen him actually looking through a rangefinder. And for those of you who don't know what a rangefinder is, that's what snipers use to, just as the name suggests, get the range of whatever the distance of their shot is so that they can calibrate and make it as accurate of a shot as possible. So he's kind of walking around and he's looking through a rangefinder, and, some citizens see him every now and then. And for an hour before Trump takes the stage, even gets on the stage, nothing. They just kind of see him. He was identified as a person of interest when he was going through security earlier that day, but never detained. Nothing happened. He's allowed to go on about his day. And by the way, David, some of this can get sort of not into the weeds, but I can just kind of ramble on down this timeline. So definitely feel free to jump in at any point.
Okay. Maybe this guy was just an avid photographer and he wanted to make sure that he got the best shot. And maybe they just mistaked that fucking AR-15 that they've been trying to get rid of. Exactly. Yeah. They've been trying to get rid of. Maybe they just thought that was a very extended lens on a very oddly shaped camera. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. If we're going to be down the middle, let's be down the middle here. Okay?
Right. Exactly. Now, he is, like I said, milling about, and eventually he winds up in this position. About 390 to...
Nickel for every time I've heard that in my life.
390 to 400 feet roughly from the stage. And, for those of you who haven't shot a gun before or, done target practice at any sort of, different ranges or whatever, 400 feet is not that far. Not that far at all. So
try falling 400 feet. It depends on the scenario, is all I'm saying.
Yes, for a shot.
For a shot, no, yeah.
And as you can see from this graphic, right, this building with the white roof, that is where one of the teams of Secret Service counter snipers were. But what's not shown is on this other roof. So there's 3 buildings there behind where Trump was speaking. The white roof, the more narrow building in the middle. And then on the far south building with the gray roof, there was also a sniper team there. So they had one sniper team on the white roof looking north, kind of in the direction of the shooter, and one looking south. And that's going to be important here in a second because there's actually on camera, this team on this building to the south, this gray building that's not marked in this graphic, is actually seen turning in the direction of where the shooter was minutes before the first shot was actually fired. So if they're turning in that direction, what did they see? What were they told across their headset? Why was the Southern team turning to point the same direction as the Northern team before the first shot was ever even fired? We'll get to that here in a second. So, like I said, milling about an hour, he gets up on that building. Now, there's some discrepancy as to how he got up there. There's some reports by law enforcement that said he climbed up an AC unit, but there was also a ladder up against the building.
I mean, can I interject here?
Yes, you absolutely
Did he look like he was industrious enough to climb up an AC unit? Like,
I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
I don't know if he put it this way. If it was still a thing, I don't think he would have passed the presidential fitness test looking at this kid, to be honest with you.
What I will say about this discrepancy between law enforcement saying climbed up an AC unit and not, we do have a CNN article that says that was tracking the shooter's movements on the morning of the event. And he actually purchased a 5-foot ladder from a local Home Depot just that morning. So there's some questions.
So he's got it. Hold on. I'm just keeping track. First of all, he's milling. That's never a good thing. Have you ever milled around something? Has anyone ever milled around you? You notice it right away.
Yeah.
And then, so milling, already strike number 1. So fucking finder, the range finder. Again, not definitively bad per se. You could just be finding the range of anything. Maybe he was just a curious kid that likes to mill around random ass buildings that likes to find the distance between this building and another building. Fine, but still super suspicious.
Yeah.
And then 3, you see this milling range finding piece of shit go to his car and dig out a ladder.
Well, I haven't seen any reports that anybody saw him carrying the ladder. It's just kind of weird that if they saw him carrying around something like a rangefinder, which can fit in your pocket, that they would miss a ladder. You know, it's a 5-foot ladder. So
so how did the ladder get in position? I mean, this guy's he's milling, so he's not being super cautious. He's range finding in broad daylight, which is, again, I just feel like this, aside from the Secret Service, this is just poor planning on his part. Like, you saved all your due diligence for the day of. You didn't go scout this area before. Like, what kind of planning ahead did this kid do? I don't know.
Listen, to let Joy Reid off the hook, okay?
She
She suggested that SEAL Team 6 should have been tasked to do this job. Apparently, the Secret Service or the CIA tasked a 20-year-old that couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
But that's just
with
them.
The job.
That's just so Raven, isn't it? It's just so CIA, FBI. No, we're not going to get the professional. Let's get this random kid that's been on a bunch of questionable sites to do our bidding. Yeah.
So we started this timeline about an hour and change before Trump started speaking, and now we're within minutes. Okay, now, whether by ladder or by AC unit, he has accessed the building.
By hook or by crook.
And
crooks.
At this point, numerous civilians started spotting him crawling across the roof with the gun.
Super not suspicious.
There is video of civilians screaming, "He's got a gun." They're calling the police over, local law enforcement that are walking around the grounds. They're calling him over, they're calling them over saying, pointing at the roof, saying, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun." And this is all taking place for, I don't know, a good 5 or so minutes before the first shot is fired. So basically, about the same time that Trump starts speaking, there are civilians pointing him out, yelling to law enforcement, saying he's up there, yada, yada, yada. And if that was all it was, now keep in mind, these are untrained civilians. These aren't highly trained, top of the line Secret Service agents.
I don't know how many classes you got to take,
or even local law enforcement. But these are civilians that are noticing that something's off, and yet nothing's done. Apparently, it would be bad enough if just the civilians saw. Apparently, one law enforcement officer, and I haven't seen whether he accessed or she, I didn't see what it was, but either by ladder or some other means, a law enforcement officer basically gets up to the edge of the roof and like pokes their head up to see what's going on. And the kid points his gun at the officer, and the officer drops back down. And at this point, still, nothing is done.
Oh, fuck.
He just pointed a gun at a cop. Nothing's done. Now, there's been some back and forth and some finger pointing, maybe not be the way, but you know, we always see the secrets. It's famous, right? In every movie, Secret Service always has their earpiece in. Right? Presumably they're talking to each other, but there's been a little bit of discrepancy of was there communication between Secret Service and local law enforcement? Because allegedly this cop that had the gun pointed at him was a local law enforcement. So maybe they weren't on the same channel, the same frequency as Secret Service. Maybe they didn't have the ability to communicate. I don't know. Either way, that doesn't bail anybody out because, second of all, why? Why would you not have them all communicating with each other for reasons just like this? Hey, I saw a suspicious character over here. Can we get the counter sniper teams on the roof to look over here and maybe see what's going on?
Looks like he's got some very hard opinions on politics, by the
way. He seems pretty intent on his views.
He seems real fixated on something.
So still at this point, nothing happens. Now, we're at roughly the same point in the timeline where Trump starts speaking. It's right around 6 p.m. And he gets about 5 to 7 minutes in his speech, and he brings up some charts on, big screens over to his side and back behind him. And the charts are showing immigration at the time he left office and when Biden came in and how the numbers shoot up, and he's touting how great his administration did, at the border and how terrible Biden did, right? So fatefully, it's a good thing he wasn't looking at this monitor to up in front of him and to his left, because he would have had no reason to turn his head. He's actually looking and gesturing to the monitor behind him. And this turn is what ultimately saves his life, because as he's talking about, he's kind of going back and forth, talking. And then at the fateful moment, he turns just like this to gesture at the chart. And right then the first bullet comes by. And this image was captured of that exact moment. It's a picture that says 1,000 words.
We can't even prove that that's a bullet, Dane.
Yeah.
I'm just steel manning Joy Reid's argument that I'm sure she very much thought out.
Now, what's so critical and why we've spent so much time on laying out this timeline before we got to this point of the shot is that at any point for any of those events, an hour before when he was noted as a person of interest at security check-in, 20 minutes before when he was noticed by law enforcement milling around and, looking through a rangefinder.
We've got
at the point where he's crawling up the building, at the point where citizens are pointing him out, at the point where he points a gun at a cop. At any of those points in time, Trump was not even on the stage. At any point in time, a simple, hey, we need to figure something out. If we got to delay the start of his speech by 15, 20, 30 minutes, however, I don't think it's going to ruin the day. Let's be cautious, keep him under wraps until we get this whole situation figured out. That call was never made. So even if we get up to the point where he actually starts speaking, and again, for 5 to 7 minutes, he's speaking, and presumably they know that this kid is in a compromising position, at least to the former president, nothing's done. But 2 minutes before the shot is fired is when, as I told you from this first picture, 2 minutes before is when the snipers on that gray roof that's unmarked in this picture, 2 minutes before the first shot is when that sniper team is seen turning towards the shooter. So again, even after you let Trump take the stage, 2 minutes before the first shot, you could have immediately cleared him off the stage right then. And it didn't happen. So, we'll talk more about this as we move through this episode, but whether it's mere incompetence or whether they were in on it, I don't think is really that material. Because even if it was just simple incompetence, that is incompetence at a level that almost borders on intentionality. It's
almost as incompetent as Joe Biden is. It's almost that incompetent.
Yeah.
It seems to trickle downward from the head honcho. But again, I don't know what you would have had to do to be that bad at your job, or what kind of call could have been made, or I don't care if you're the most hardened liberal or most hardened conservative. Like, if you still have faith in these processes anymore, we've got an overarching you said that the evidence doesn't matter, but I would say that the only explanation is that something was up. Something was going on. Because you have people, you mentioned the people for 5 minutes before the shots were fired were running around telling police and doing all that stuff. There's people running around. Like, if you're a spotter, a police or a SWAT spotter or a sniper or anything, you're looking for any suspicious movement. If you have a bunch of people pointing at the top of a building, even the most shitty spotter would be able to point that out. Because if I'm not mistaken, the people that were pointing him out weren't actually part of the rally. They were outside of the grounds.
Yes.
And they were just kind of watching it.
Outside the security perimeter. As the shooter was.
Well, there you go. So they're sitting there running around, and wouldn't they kind of take notice? At least one of them say, hey, check out North 40 or whatever the fuck it is. So even if you want to be an apologist for them and just say, like, this was just poor communication, there's poor communication, and then there's deliberately poor communication. Like, there's not answering my phone because I was busy, and there's not answering my phone because I don't fucking like you right now. It's like, there's a reason that they were not communicating well, is my humble take.
Yes.
And I don't know how you could take it otherwise.
David and I, we actually got, this is a first time for not weapons of destruction, but on any media, we actually have a picture of the sniper in action. Wrong picture. That's not this not in action, but it was the
FedEx driver from before too, right?
Yeah. This is the shooter, Matthew Thomas Crooks. This is the picture that's all over media. They don't want you to see him as he is now. They picked an innocent looking picture of him from high school. And, but that's the shooter. Fortunately, he was a terrible shot. Reports from classmates are that he tried out for the shooting team in high school and was actually not kicked off, but just told not to come back because his shot was so bad that he was bordering on dangerous.
Which,
so, you know,
I don't know how you could fuck that up that bad.
Again, put that in the incompetence category for the government. You know, if they're going to pick an assassin, they couldn't really pick one worse than that.
I want to go with one of these guys that we've trained for years not to miss. Nah, that's too suspicious. They'd know something was up. Not the fact that we're going to tell the Secret Service to stand down for 20 fucking minutes and let this guy shuttle his way onto a very slopey building. They won't see anything wrong with that, but if we have an actual trained professional, that's why we got to go to the bottom of the class. You can't even be involved in a shooting course in fucking high school. Yeah. I think there's not even a C team shooting course that he could make.
No, apparently not.
JV.
Apparently they were like, dude, don't come back. You're going to kill somebody.
Right.
You're that bad.
I believe in the Second Amendment, but not for you. You don't deserve the Second Amendment. You need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Right.
So as you know, everybody knows, unless you know, you're hearing it here first, which, you know, we're happy to enlighten you. Trump was hit in the ear. 5 to 8 shots were fired. It's unclear. I haven't seen an accurate reporting as to how many were from the shooter and how many were the counter sniper. But at some point, the counter sniper.
Don't feel bad, Dane, because the Secret Service manager didn't know either. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then good.
You're in good company.
The Secret Service counter sniper actually did hit the shooter, killed him on the roof. But like I said, not before he could at least graze Trump's ear. And then, very sadly, one person in the crowd, a Corey Comparator, which was a retired firefighter, threw his wife and daughter to the ground to literally take a bullet for them and shield them. And unfortunately, he lost his life that day. 2 other people in the stands standing behind Trump were hit. I think they were rushed away from the scene in critical condition, but were later stabilized.
And I know what you're asking, guys. Were the 2 women Secret Service members hit? And no, don't worry. Don't worry. They were taking shelter behind the president for their safety and behind the stage for their safety. So they made it out alive. I know you were really concerned about them.
Yeah. They not impressive. Not impressive.
Not impressive. They did the exact opposite of their job.
Of what you're supposed to do.
It's like,
yeah. And there's plenty of memes, plenty of videos going around about how pathetic their performance was on the ground. Left him completely exposed, by the way, when they are not even sure there's maybe a second shooter in the field or on the ground or anything like that. Left him completely exposed. But, you know, whatever, I guess, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's a good thing we got our numbers of women on the Secret Service up. But anyway, so this, you know, we're nearing the end of our objective. I know we got a little unobjective there towards the end, but I highly encourage, this will be in the show notes page. Definitely go take a look at it. This will probably be the first and last time you ever have your boys at Weapons of Mass Destruction encourage you to go view or take part in New York Times content. But the New York Times did put together this roughly 6.5 minute video piecing all of the timeline together, as was known to them on July 18th. So last weekend, about 5 days after the event. But this is the opening scene to the timeline. This was what we were talking about, the citizens pointing at the roof. This is where Crooks was. And definitely encourage you to go watch that video. Like I said, it's 6.5 minutes, but it does break it down pretty well, at least based on the facts that the New York Times knew at the time that they produced the video. So, David, now, what did the Secret Service have to say about all this? Did they fall on the sword and say, whoopsie daisies? Or did they start making excuses? What do you think? What do you think, David?
Dane, I think you're being a little disingenuous, to be honest with you. I don't think you realize what it really does mean to be a member of the Secret Service. Like, sometimes the sun's in your eyes. Okay, it's really hard. Sometimes you have to wear those black suits. Dane, it's summertime. They're expected to wear black suits.
I know.
And stand there God only knows what their hydration levels were. What was the humidity level? They were probably about to pass out themselves. And then sometimes when guns are shot, Dane, sometimes you think they're firecrackers. So you drop to the ground and you look for your own firecracker stash instead of jumping to the president. And sometimes buildings are weird. They look like they're hundreds of miles away and they turn out to be 390 feet. You need to get off your fucking high horse. I don't know if you've ever been in a combat zone. But I was in the Marines. I was a Navy SEAL.
I will grant you, David, that sometimes doing your
Jesse
job,
Ventura, by the way.
Sometimes doing your job is hard to do when you're not doing your job.
When you're intentionally not doing your job?
Yeah, exactly. So the first excuse that the geniuses, this Kimberly Cheadle, who is the former now.
By the way, if you want to digest this a little bit better, just envision a 5-year-old girl giving these excuses. It'll help you digest it a lot better.
A 5-year-old actually might have done better than Cheadle did. At first, as is with all these people that get in these high unearned positions, they are obstinate. They say, well, listen, mistakes were made, but I'm not stepping down. Okay, I'm in this thing for the long haul. I'll fix it. I'll make it right. I'll blah, blah, blah. And then she testified in front of Congress about a week later and completely made even a bigger fool of herself. And she did step down, not unlike her boss. We'll get to that later in the episode. But anyway, the first excuse out of Miss Cheadle's mouth, and the Secret Service in particular, was that the roof was a little too slopey. Now, this picture right here that you're seeing is not a picture of the roof Crooks was on, obviously. This is a sloped roof that the counter snipers were positioned on.
I don't know, Dane.
So, although Crooks's roof was too slopey, and by the way, let me just go ahead and bring that back up in case you forgot that still shot from the New York Times piece. That's about how slopey Crooks's roof was.
Oh, we can't see it, Dane. The picture is still over top of it.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
That's about how slopey Crooks's roof was. And this is how slopey the Secret Service's roof was. So you'll have to pardon those of us that have eyeballs for not believing that the decision not to place anybody on that roof was that there was too much slope. Now, she will say, and she did say, but it was okay because we actually had people stationed inside the building, under the roof.
And they didn't hear him clamoring up the fucking AC vent?
Apparently not.
Those raccoons around here are pretty fucking large, huh?
And what's that metal scraping I hear coming across that metal roof
Rocky
up
Raccoon,
there?
he must have been reading his Bible, Gideon's Bible.
So for another example of whether or not Secret Service agents have the wherewithal to navigate slopey roofs, we had this tweet from Elon talking about, it's kind of slopey in terms of this is the roof of the White House, as we see a Secret Service agent stationed up there, doing big things.
That's a proper slope right there.
Engaging with the slopies. So listen, if you're gonna make excuses, come on. And this really gets back to the theme David and I always talk about on this podcast. Government failing, and failing so spectacularly, is not a bug. It's a feature. And the reason why it's a feature, it could be for nefarious purposes, right? They want to screw up so bad that they can just say, yeah, well, we screwed up. Sorry, it got the guy shot at. But really, doesn't even need to be that. Nefarious intent isn't even necessary. They fail and fail spectacularly all the time because there is no incentive to produce results. Because whether Trump is hit or not, whether your tax dollars are money laundered through a foreign proxy war to go into their pockets, or whether it's actually
which Joe Biden admitted to at the debate,
to do things which they are supposed to do, build schools and roads and bridges, et cetera, no matter what the scenario is, whether you like it or not, whether you're happy with the results or not, you're going to keep paying your taxes and the incompetent are going to keep failing upwards. That is the nature of government, because they do not have to compete for your dollars. And maybe situations like this, really crazy, over the top, potentially world altering events like this, will wake people up to realize that point. Maybe not. But whether it's in the context of foreign policy or economics or culture war policy or anything, or protecting a former president from being assassinated, the same always occurs. It's incompetence across the board because there's no incentive to succeed or produce results.
Well, with that timeline, Dane, I think it would be disingenuine of us. There we go. That's second take. That's what they call me. That's what they call me, David. David, second take. Second take, David. Not to take a broader look at what really has been going on for the last, 8 years since he first ran in 2016 to now. They called him a Russian Manchurian candidate. They said he stole the election. Then they impeached him for being a Manchurian candidate of Russia. Then when he got out, by the way, there was a couple of court cases before he was actually president, the Stormy Daniels thing and all that. And then after he got out, they kind of left him alone. They would still talk shit and they'd still blame him for everything that went wrong in the Biden administration. That's for sure. And then when he decided to run again, they brought trumped up charge after trumped up charge. And then they finally got him in a kangaroo court conviction. And it didn't look like any of those things were going to stick after SCOTUS just said that the president is not held to criminal law, right? And that's why Joy Reid made that video. And in said video, Joy Reid says the president can pretty much just eliminate their political rivals. So you guys have done everything you can aside from, and then all of a sudden, the aside from
is
happens,
attempted. Yeah.
And it wasn't successful because, you guys don't like guns that much. But what are we to make of it? If you follow their course of action, it was just clear that they were just coming after him, and they weren't going to stop until they broke the law multiple times doing it, whether it be Obama having the FBI doing it, whether it be Hillary paying for the Steele dossier, whether it just being the judge making a mockery of the New York court that he was running. They broke the law because he was a political adversary. So they're breaking democracy in order to save it, all the way, and not including the thing that happened on Saturday. And I'm only assuming that they took a real hard look at themselves, a real hard look in the mirror after that Saturday. And they said, you know what, guys, we've lost our way. We're going to come out on Monday. We'll give it a couple of days. I don't want to do it too soon. It hurts too much. We'll give it a couple of days. And we're going to come out and say, listen, Trump said some shit and we've said some shit that might have gotten you guys all riled up. And for that, we are sorry. We take responsibility. And now we are going to work as a community, as a country, to bring you better news, to bring you better information, and to not rile you up or take advantage of your emotions, vitriol for one side or the other. And we're gonna get back to being a country first and a democracy. Is that what they did, Dane?
That is not what they did.
Oh, shit.
And, that actually segues brilliantly into the next part of the show, which is the left's reaction to this whole situation. Because the way David just laid it out could have been, but before I did want to give a shout out and kudos to, I didn't see anybody else say this. Maybe there were other people that said it besides him, but several months ago, Tucker Carlson was making exactly this claim, what David just said about, he laid out okay, first they tried to, call into question his legitimacy as a president. Then they spent all 4 years undercutting him. Then they tried to put him in jail or prosecute him for anything they could come up with.
Oh, they blamed him for COVID,
by the way. Yeah, what's left? the only thing left is to try to kill him. And, you know, when Tucker said it, even I was like, okay, but even they won't go that far because, you know, that's too, it would be too obvious for them to try to do it.
It's movie, it's story, it's fairy tale shit.
Clearly not. And, you know, kudos to Tucker for seeing it coming months ago. Like I said, he may not have been the only one saying it. He's the only one I saw say it. But, yeah, it's just no matter how much you think these people will not do something because it would just be a step too far, it's never a step too far for them, which should be painfully obvious now.
Eesh.
So, but with that aside,
we digress.
How did the left react? Now, they could have done exactly what David just said, you know, mea culpa. We have our, you know, role to play in this just as much as the other side. And because we are the side of tolerance and quote unquote hashtag love Trump's hate, right? We're going to kill him with kindness.
Is that what they're calling bullets nowadays?
Yeah. Let's not, you know, let's tone it down, right? Let's apologize because political violence, you know, borderline civil war, if the kid would have been a better shot.
This makes us look really bad, by the way. Did anyone go, hey, we've been saying a lot of shit, and if I was a detective, I would start with us. So maybe we should pull back a little bit.
Yeah. But that's not at all the direction they did, which was actually kind of curious because, right, if Democrats were at all, or leftists, liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call them, if they were at all ideologically consistent, they would actually have to defend the assassination attempt, which, as terrible of a character trait as that is, I'll at least give them credit for sticking to their principles for those that do, because you can't spend every day of your waking life since 2016 saying that Trump spells electoral doom and he's the end of democracy and he's Hitler and he's probably going to put you all in camps and on trains and yada, yada, yada. And then say, well, we shouldn't kill him though, right? Because this is the whole classic, like, if you could travel back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you do it? Right? Most people will say, well, yeah, because although you're killing an innocent baby, you're saving the deaths of millions of people and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, listen, if the left was ideologically consistent, if they were actually, you know.
Maybe baby Hitler just needed another hug in his life. Maybe you didn't have to kill baby Hitler. Maybe just grow up, throw the ball with him. Hey, you know, those Jewish people, they're all right. You know, maybe leave them alone.
Yeah.
That's all that's needed. Just a little kindness.
If they were consistent, they would be applauding this attempt, but they know they can't do that, right? They know. Yeah, and I'm talking about like the talking heads on TV that now had to say like, oh, you know, kind of let's tone it down, blah, blah, blah. Because what they really are is unprincipled Machiavellian hacks, right? They will do and say whatever it takes to get, retain, or expand political power. And if that means, we should, you know, backtrack at least for 24 hours from our stuff about, you know, he's literally Satan and should probably be killed. We'll do that because, you know, we don't want to lose too much popular support. But at any rate, do you think the media had anything to say about, you know, maybe it was our fault, maybe we should step back from it a little bit? No. He's literally him. So the and it gets no better from them, because we had a couple headlines from them just days after the event. We have this from Forbes: will surviving gunfire be Donald Trump's next appeal to black voters? Which, first of all, racist. Forbes, jeez.
It's like you rich white people don't know how to talk to black people.
But second of all, there was an assassination attempt on a political opposition opponent where he was unprotected by a Secret Service that is under the auspices of his political opponent. And the only thing you can think of to write an article on it is, oh, darn, is this going to make him more popular with black voters?
They can't even fucking help themselves.
Or how about this one from CNN? Secret Service rushes to Trump off stage after he falls at rally.
He falls at rally. Good.
Darn it. And this is one of the more famous ones that went around the internet over the last couple of weeks. If CNN was around back in the 1960s, how they would have reported on the JFK assassination. Really, I'm glad they put in that second really.
Yes.
Because really, if he only fell really hard,
that would imply that there weren't multiple shots.
Yeah, exactly. So, and in terms of, the inflammatory rhetoric throughout this whole situation, even, Biden himself is not immune, right? He says Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. Donald Trump, these are all tweets from Joe Biden over the last few years. Next, Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. Literally.
Man.
Joe Biden.
He must have a fucking laser he's going to blow up the moon with.
Tweets, Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, and we cannot let him win. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, talking to folks about what's at stake in this election. Tune in. And then last one, on December 20th of last year, Trump poses many threats to our country, the right to choose, civil rights, voting rights, and America's standing in the world. But the greatest threat he poses is to our democracy. If we lose that, we lose everything. So, David, you think that toned down over the last couple weeks?
Well, when you lead off with Trump falls at rally, I don't think it gets much better from there. I don't think you're gonna be doubling or backing off of that. Oh, sorry, we just didn't. What's that? There were 8 shots fired and we didn't hear any of them. Oh, okay. Sorry, he didn't fall. He didn't fall. I heard that the new thing now is that they're saying that it wasn't actually the bullet that hit him. It was the glass. So he wasn't really hit. It's like, what planet are you from?
What?
What planet are you from? What the fuck? What the fuck does it matter whether or not the glass cut him or the bullet cut him? Like, he was shot at. Were the bullets still coming at him? Okay, cool. Then what's your fucking point? Like, oh, he shouldn't get a Purple Heart. The bomb didn't hit him. It hit the ground next to him and all the shrapnel went into his ass. He just got dirt in his butt. He doesn't deserve the... Like, what are you talking about? This
is the first I'm hearing of the glass argument. So let me just kind of go through this with you. So first of all, where would the glass have come from? He was standing out in the open. But second of all, even if glass did go flying at him...
One of the conspiracy theories was like there was a razor and they just did like what they do in the WWE and he like falls down and, like, oh, and then he like cuts himself and like, ah! And like all there's blood. They were saying that he had a razor. They were saying that he staged it and that's why he came up like this. It's like, fight! Like, guys. Let's not lose our cool here.
I mean, listen, folks, I believe nothing of what I hear and only half of what I see myself, but and we're going to get into this whole conspiracy theory here in a second, but the sheer implausibility of that is just bonkers. But before we get to that, we have just the one last thing about the reaction from the left. And, again, we're going to say the same thing about this gentleman as we did about Joy Reid, of not that they speak for the entire left, but the way they see and view the world and talk about it is shared amongst many on the left. And in this one, I'm talking about Destiny. He's the famous, leftist, liberal, progressive streamer who gets in debates. And I guess his fans think that he wins, but it's just, moral screeching and, very, very little logic and reason. But anyway, Destiny, speaking about the gentleman who died, Corey Comparator, said, listen, even if you're a fan of mine and you're at that rally, I'm going to laugh and make fun of you when you die. And it's because you deserve it, right? You're supporting Trump. He's terrible. He's this, he's that. Now, again, this is from the love Trump's hate side, the tolerance side, the this, that, or whatever. And when Destiny was confronted on this, he defended himself saying, listen, I'm not going to have a whole lot of sympathy for the right because they started this and they're the ones that are, having this bombastic rhetoric and all of that kind of stuff. Completely missing all mirrors in his house because he's the exact type of person he's calling out on the right. But what I thought was particularly interesting about him making that commentary is, and we've said it a couple times on the podcast, and it just keeps bearing itself out. And I hate to be the one that says Trump was right, but when he made that statement a couple years ago of, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. Destiny's commentary and a lot of people on social media talking about this event in such callous terms like that really brings that into stark focus, because if you're going to cheer the death of an innocent man for having the audacity to go to a political rally of somebody that you don't like, you would, if given the opportunity, if you did have the power, if you were king for a day and could execute anybody you wanted, it sounds to me like you would execute anybody who was even remotely sympathetic to Trump or anything else like that.
You remember when they wanted to make a list when Biden got in of all the people that voted for Trump?
Of course.
Remember that list?
Yeah. But even that list was for people who were like actively engaged in his administration and all of that kind of stuff. But this is just an average, everyday retired firefighter just protecting his family. And they're going to cheer your death because you happen to be at the rally.
By the way, say that shit to their face.
Oh, yeah.
Go to the rally and say that.
Billy Big
Bones over there making fun of people behind
wet.
his computer, behind in his safe little space, because God knows he needs a safe space. He can't hear any words that he disagrees with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's the predictable reaction from the left. And you'll be shocked to learn, Mimis, if you've spent any time on social, or if you haven't spent time on social media over the last couple of weeks, it didn't get much better from those few days right after the event up until now. The rhetoric is right back to it. He's literally Hitler. He's going to be the end of democracy. It's the same old shit.
Jesus
so
Christ.
If you thought they were going to learn anything, sorry to disappoint.
One news cycle, huh?
But now, as David kind of alluded to with the whole glass commentary, the left is getting involved in the conspiracy game. They are now saying, many are saying that it was staged, it wasn't real, it was somehow, rigged in some way.
God, are they not just the worst type of person? Are they seriously not?
In every way.
Jesus Christ. Like, you guys can't even be human for 2 fucking seconds, but then you say that we're inhuman because we believe in things like gender and like life and liberty. Crazy.
I mean, but let's just think about the sheer logistics of that for 5 seconds. Just imagine Trump or somebody in the Trump campaign that wants to bolster Trump's support by making him look like some kind of martyr hero, but not actually have him die, went and told a 20-something-year-old know-nothing who can't hit the broadside of a barn, I want you to miss me by this much. Make sure you don't hit me.
Dane, look, he's holding up his fingers by just how much he wants him to miss. It's so clear, Dane. It's so clear.
I want you to miss me by that much. And even if you could believe that they would set into motion that sort of plan to make it that narrow of a margin, that the kid wouldn't then say, I like it, Mr. Trump, because I like it and I want to do what I can to help you win. But quick question. What do I get out of this? Am I going to be a national hero? What's going to happen? Am I going to get a spot in your administration? Maybe get some money?
You'll make America great again in some way that you're probably not going to want to hear about.
Yeah. Your brains are going to be all over that roof that you're on. So enjoy your 3 seconds of fame. It's just
enjoy those 6 shots you got off.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'm out of words for this whole. It was staged. It was fake. It was
never
this.
Funny.
Yeah,
but it's not. So, I mean, I know we've said it a lot on the podcast, but like, this is how democracy ends. Like, this is it. Like, if somebody can take a shot at another human that's running for presidency, and you don't have a problem with that, then you're the problem. Then you're not playing democracy. You're not the democracy that you hold so dear to you no longer is in effect anymore. You don't want democracy. You want totalitarianism. You want your side to win no matter what, which is not democracy. It's monarchy at best, totalitarianism, communism, whatever you want to call it. What is that old Stalin remark? It's not who the people vote for, it's who's counting the votes.
Yep.
So you guys aren't interested in that. So stop saying it. Just come out and say it. Like, you guys don't want to be a part of it anymore. You guys just want to be it forever because you have all the good ideas. You're the smart ones. You have all the best ideas. Like, you can be a bird if you want to be. And then we all have to call you Birdie McBirderton, and we never have to actually see you fly. No big deal. So I don't. That's my point.
So
I kick it back over to you.
The first thing the left did was try to say, let's tone down the rhetoric, but it's not just us. The right kind of started this.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, an apology.
And then when that didn't work, then it was staged and it's fake. And then
Honey, I'm sorry I hit you, but I hate that sandwich, okay? It's your fault too.
Their next attempt to pass the buck was that Crooks was a Republican. Now, what I have here is some of Crooks's donations. Now, granted, he's a 20-year-old, I think he was unemployed kid, so he's not, donating mega checks, $15 here and there. But if you notice who he's donating for earmarked for Progressive Turnout Project. He's donating to the Hybrid Pact. He's donating to Act Blue. Okay. So even though Crooks is a registered Republican, which is, if you ask the left after this event, that's all you need. If you're a registered Republican, that means you're a Republican.
One question that solves all the problems.
Never mind the fact that you literally took a shot at the Republican candidate, or that you've actually, again, actions, words, you've actually donated to leftist progressive campaigns. But we're going to ignore all that and say you're a Republican because, again, in their heart of hearts, even though they're evil, terrible people, they know that this looks bad on them if he's one of them. So they have to say, no, he's really one of you. Well, let me tell you a little personal anecdote that tells you that even if you didn't ignore all that, that there's another piece to this puzzle that they don't talk about, which makes perfect sense for why they're full of shit. So I am a registered Republican. Now, if you have listened or watched this podcast for any length of period of time, you're like, how the hell is Dane a Republican? He doesn't act like a Republican, talk like a Republican, all of this kind of stuff. And that's because I'm not. But why am I a registered Republican? Well, because Florida is a closed primary state. And for our non-U.S. citizen watchers and listeners, and even for some of them who, are smarter people than us and decide not to vote, a closed primary state means that you can only vote in the primary of the party to which you're registered. So in Florida, and you can't be registered to multiple parties at once. So in Florida, you can either be registered a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, who doesn't have a party, by the way, a libertarian, whatever the case may be. When primary season comes around, you're only allowed to vote in one primary, whichever one you're registered to. If you're not registered to any, you can't vote in any primaries. So in 2016, I've registered as a Republican so that I could vote for Rand Paul in the primary because I genuinely wanted to see a Paul become president of the United States. Didn't happen because he actually dropped out of the race like 2 weeks before the Florida primary happened. So I didn't get to. I wrote his name in anyway.
In very
and I've just never changed it. I'm still a registered Republican as of 2024, but I've never voted for a Republican in a major national election. I'm not a Republican in any way, shape, or form, but that's why I'm a registered Republican. Now, Pennsylvania, where this event happened, where Crooks lives, where he's a citizen, is also a closed primary state. So when you look at his actions of only donating to leftist progressive super PACs and shooting at the former president, the Republican nominee, it makes sense that he probably, like me, registers as a Republican so he could vote in the Republican primary because he doesn't care who the Democrats nominate. Or this year, there was just a shoo-in. They were just going to handpick it anyway. They didn't even get a primary. I'm just going to register as a Republican so I could vote for the less bad option. And I don't know. My guess is he probably voted for Nikki Haley. But that's why he's a registered Republican. So he could vote in the Republican primaries in Pennsylvania because it's a closed primary state, not because he's actually a Republican taking a shot at the Republican nominee. A little bit of helpful background in case you're wondering why he would be registered Republican and doing the things that he's doing. It makes a lot more sense that he's not a Republican in any way, shape, or form. And that's why he took a shot at the former president.
I mean, unless he was really, really upset that Nikki Haley didn't get the bid, which I don't think that would be even remotely possible. I don't know why he would shoot at a Republican candidate if he was truly a Republican.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even if he was a never Trumper.
And put it this way, I know that he's not a Republican because of how good his shot was. If he was an actual Republican, he wouldn't have missed. So put it that way.
Yeah. So that's that, Mr. That's that. Now, for the final part of the left's reaction, we have the wishes, the dreams of many on the left that the shooter had been a more accurate shot. That darn it, he should have hit him, or maybe the next shooter will be a better shot, or just all these different forms of wishing that Trump had died.
I can't have anything anymore, Dane. Can't have anything anymore.
No,
it took the D from me.
David's a big Tenacious D fan. I was too. It's a big part of our childhood was listening. It doesn't change
the fact that the songs are funny, but
yeah,
it does besmirch them a tish.
Yeah, and I'm not a whole shut up and dribble kind of guy, but if what you're going to do with your fame and your platform is to just mindly regurgitate the same dumb shit that your elites have told you to say, or that every, mental marginal to the left, without two brain cells left to rub together, is just mindlessly retweeting on X all day long. If that's all you're going to contribute is the same dumb shit, then yeah, in that case, shut up and dribble. Or in this case, shut up and, play your songs. Don't ruin it for people like us who liked your shit and then now, have to, deal with your politics or whatever. Just, if you have something novel or interesting or well thought out to say, by all means, speak your mind, speak your truth. But if you're just going to say the same dumb shit everybody else is saying, why throw away all your goodwill that you generated from your sport or your entertainment or whatever to just say the same stuff that, Butthole Surfer 99 on X said? I don't get it.
Hey, don't you bring the Butthole Surfers into this? Did they say something too?
No.
God damn it. That's their song.
But this, and I do want to play this. There was a rather hilarious X interview with and you won't be surprised by this, is a leftist wearing her mask in watch Year of Our Lord 2024 being interviewed about political violence. And look at this tone and tenor from our friends on the left here with her nice little nuclear tattoo. If you had to draw a caricature, this is what you would do.
She's got her cat ears too, so don't forget about those.
Yeah. So here's what she had to say about the political violence.
Absolutely. You guys are out here on the heels of the attempted Trump assassination. Can I get your reaction to what happened the other day?
Well, it's a shame the person missed, but it's ironic that the shooter was also a Republican, and I am scared about political violence.
It's a shame the shooter missed. I am scared of political violence.
That's all over the place, bitch. Kind of like your fucking outfit. Kind of like you, probably. Kind of like your brain.
I just...
Oh, and he was Republican. Hey, Dane. The shooter was Republican. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
He's a Republican.
How these people...
It's over, Dane. Fuck it. It's over. This country's done. We're good. We're good. Let's enjoy Netflix for while it's on. Just keep Netflixing, and it's done. Because if that's a person that's going to vote in this upcoming election, if that's as good as our country has to offer, is that we're fucked.
We deserve it. Yeah,
we're so fucked.
You know, like, for all the people that absolutely lose their minds about the mere suggestion that maybe there should be a minimum level, like voting, like a little 10 question
test.
Yeah, a 10 question multiple choice test for whether or not you should be allowed to vote. How can somebody watch that? And I'm not talking about, dogmatically left, right. I'm talking about to the broad middle, most of whom don't even vote in the first place. Looking at this video, how can you not be in favor of somebody at least having to pass? And I'm not even talking about a complicated test. I'm saying like a test that says, what are the 3 branches of government? Or who was the first president of the United States? Very simple, basic civic stuff that I'll guarantee you these people don't know. That should be a minimum bar to be able to vote, a minimum. Because, these are the same people, the ones that screech and say, oh, well, that would be racist, or that would be whatever, making somebody take a test to be able to vote. These are the same people who tout how great public education is because democracy only survives when you have an informed, intelligent public. Well, whether she went to public school or not, whatever created that thing that you see on your screen right there, that could literally within the same breath, and you could probably tell her breaths aren't very long. Within the same breath, she says, I'm sad the shooter missed. I'm afraid of political violence.
To defend her, Dane.
No sense of irony at all.
To defend her, you saw the same thing with the college kids protesting the war in Gaza. They kept saying from the river to the sea, Gaza will be free. And they had no fucking idea what it actually meant. They didn't know that it was calling for genocide. And then they said that, oh, you've got a sign here. Did you make that sign? No, it was handed to me when I got here. Well, did you know that that's anti-Semitic? He goes, oh, no, I didn't know that. It was like, oh, well, it is. So what are you going to do? Well, I guess I'll put it down. Like, no shit, you're going to put it down. Like you said, like, these people don't think before they just regurgitate. And that's really what our educational system is, by the way, but not to get off into a fucking tangent. But I mean, that's what they're capable of. They can regurgitate the thing of the day, kind of like how they're saying that they never said. And this is how dumb that the liberal media is that they think they can come out and say that they never called Kamala Harris the border czar. It's like, bitch, we don't even have to go back into the library. Like, we could just look up shit from last year that you, the person saying that you didn't say it, said it 5 fucking times. When Dave Smith was debating Cuomo, he's like, I never said that. Dave Smith goes, direct your attention to the video monitor over there. And he's saying exactly what he said he didn't say. And he's like, well, we didn't have the information. He's like, bullshit, you had the information. You were just chilling out for your corporate overlords. It's fine, but just admit it. And he would never admit it. They just never fucking admit it.
No.
And you have to pay attention. This is why we say you have to pay attention.
No, and I mean, and again, armchair quarterback in the psychology of it all, it's not a coincidence why that same group of people is all about anti-meritocratic society, is all about DEI bullshit and all of that kind of stuff. Because on a level playing field where they have to compete with you on results, they will fail every time and they know it. So how do they compete? They compete on 2 ways. They bring you down by arbitrarily, putting you in a lower rung of the oppression Olympics. And secondly, they put a lot of social value and credit on ridiculous things that they get to define amorphously, like social justice. They are more virtuous because they said the right thing. They're a good person because they said, I wish the shooter would have hit. That gives them social credit. In a society where if it was meritocratic, they would never be able to compete with you.
Because
But
there's
they can
something that's called accountability in a meritocracy.
Yeah. And which they're terrified of. So, in that sense, although a lot of the things they say seem to be contradictory and doesn't really make sense, and they have, non sequiturs and all kinds of logical fallacies flowing out of their mouths at any one time, they're at least consistent in the type of society that they're trying to create, which is one where it's a perpetual one of tyrannical power that they naively and incorrectly always assume that they'll be in control of. And again, this is the Lenin quote about useful idiots. Useful idiots are people that advance agendas which they don't fully understand and which that in the long run is not going to benefit them. Who were the first people to be lined up against the trenches? Other leftists that helped the Bolsheviks get into power. And then when the Bolsheviks were in power, they're like, you're not sufficiently Bolshevik enough. Face the wall. Right? It wasn't even the monarchists that were the first ones to get shot. It was the useful idiots who agitated and got those people in power. And I'll guarantee you, Rainbow Mask in 2024 with kitty ears that is sad the shooter missed, but is afraid of political violence is such a person. If she got the leftist tyrannical, regime that she wanted, even more so than it is today, in perpetual power, she's going to be the first one that they're put on the train car, the metaphorical train car, so to speak.
They always think that they'll
never lose power. Right.
It's like you dipshits. Like, why do you think that the most amount of billionaires exist in Russia? Because the least amount of the middle class exists there because they took all their fucking money. Like, Jesus Christ, it's not hard to figure it out. But again, you got to pay attention and you got to critically think. You can't just wake up in the morning and just regurgitate with all your friends and, oh no, I will vote blue no matter who. Anybody that disagrees with me is a Nazi. All right, I'm going to go get my mochaccino from the downstairs cafeteria, go back to my office and not do my job and post more to Twitter. Bye.
Yeah. And I mean, more evidence of their hypocrisy, right? This is the democracy is sacred crowd, right? Trump is an existential threat to democracy.
So what part of democracy haven't the liberals stepped on yet? They've tried to censor language, which is the fulcrum of our fucking country. They're trying to take our guns. They've always been doing that. They subverted the judicial system. And now they're trying to commit murder. Political adversaries, which we thought only existed in like South America and, countries in Africa and so on and so forth. Never here. Political adversaries would never get assassinated here. So what are they actually holding up of this democracy that they hold so dear and near to their hearts?
Yeah. Democracy is such a strong principle for them that they're willing to kill your candidate if you don't vote for theirs. Or it's so sacred to them that they will lie through their teeth for months and years at a time, saying that their candidate is mentally fit for office, just long enough to get him past the primaries to where not even disenfranchising Republican voters, which I'm sure they would love to do, but disenfranchising themselves. They propped up Biden just long enough to get past primary season so that they didn't get a vote to decide who was actually going to be their nominee. And then right when primary season's over, they turn on him like, a den of thieves and say, well, you got to go, Joe. You're too much of a liability. And we are going to let the donor class hand select who your successor is going to be. And the Democratic voters that would have been able to participate in a primary don't get a say in this at all, which, by the way, is quite interesting because when Kamala was running in the Democratic primary in 2020, I don't think there was one state in the few states that she was in before she dropped out that she got above 2%.
She didn't get one vote from any of the
No, she didn't win any electors, but I'm saying like even just above 2% in any individual state. I don't think she ever cracked the 2% threshold.
But guess what they're saying? She's the smartest. She's gonna outsmart Donald Trump. Like, this is what I mean by, like, pay attention. They've been hiding her more than they've been hiding Biden.
Yeah.
Like, she literally can't get her word. She just said that we were allies with North Korea today.
Yeah. And
Are
so,
we?
I mean,
like, that's news.
how can you possibly claim to be the party or a person, a champion of democracy, if you are going, even if you're on that side, and you're going to allow the donor class to select your candidate for you after they spent all of this time lying to you about the other candidate that they were going to shove down your throat, never giving you a say in it at all, and they're the ones that are upholding democracy and that Trump's a threat to it. Again, if that's your definition of democracy, and again, I don't know about David, but I've made it very clear numerous times in this podcast, I am no friend of democracy. I do not look on it kindly for all kinds of reasons that we don't have time to get into on this particular episode.
We're already going long.
Check some of the other ones. But if that's your champion of democracy, I mean, find me a difference between that and a dictatorship. You got what?
By the way,
handful.
don't forget what they did to Bernie in the 2016.
Yeah.
He
That's
won
what I'm
the
saying. It's
election.
par for the course.
It's like
the popular vote democracy on the Democratic side was for Bernie Sanders in 2016.
You haven't elected your candidate since
Obama. That was the last time that Democratic voters actually had a say in who their nominee was going to be. So,
fuck, man.
Again,
and you guys are standing up for democracy.
Excuse us if we don't buy your bullshit about democracy. So, with that being said, we'll move on to the right, and this one is much quicker because we just have to call out the right when they do dumb shit against their own professed principles. Is the Libs of TikTok page, which by and large does good work, puts out a lot of good stuff. We've talked about them before. They're basically famous for taking videos that are created by people on the left and sharing them to the broader internet, which makes the left look bad. And then they get mad about being shared in their own words, but that's neither here nor there.
That's terrible.
What that page started to get into since the attempted assassination was regular, average, everyday folks that obviously weren't fans of Trump would either tweet or say in public to where they could be recorded or text or in some other form of media, say basically what Kyle Gass of Tenacious D said is, I wish the shooter would have hit. I hope the next one doesn't miss, all of that kind of stuff. And Libs of TikTok, when these people were recorded doing it, would share it to their page and encourage these people to get doxxed, be fired from their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, two things at play here. First of all, this is supposed to be the side of anti-cancel culture, right? Just because somebody says something that you don't like on the internet doesn't mean that their lives should be destroyed over it. On the other hand,
we're really holding on to that, by the way. We're really going to need that.
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, so again, righty, or people on the right, people that agree with the Libs of TikTok doing that, yes, I will agree with you that when the left goes after and wants to cancel somebody for a joke they tweeted when they were 15 years old 20 years ago is a category of difference from somebody who's saying, I wish that the shooter would have hit Trump. I'm going to agree with you that the person saying the latter is probably a worse person than somebody that said a joke that wasn't even bad at the time, but is now 20 years in retrospect. So I'm not comparing apples to apples. But the thing about principles, the curious thing about principles is that they remain unchanged despite changing circumstances. And if you're going to profess principles of being free speech, anti-cancel culture, et cetera, don't do this. Don't engage. Like, listen, if you want to retweet and get Congress people in positions of power in trouble or fired, go for it. But if you are tweeting to get people canceled for saying unseedy things like that, like, you're not really setting yourself apart in being a much more principled, virtuous person.
Liberal.
Yeah.
You're being a liberal. Don't be a liberal.
Yeah, you're getting down to their level. However, I will say, major caveat. these people on the left that are saying this, not exceedingly sympathetic characters. Not only for what they're saying in this moment, but for the fact that they've been the ones cheering the canceling of people on the right for much, much more innocuous activities, right? They want to cancel, what's her name from the Harry Potter series?
Hermione Granger?
No, the lady who wrote it.
Oh,
who's
Rowling.
now like anti-trans,
JK.
they say. Yeah, JK. Like they want to get rid of JK Rowling for saying like, listen, I'm a feminist. I've always been a feminist. And I don't think the trans agenda is in line with my feminist goals. You want to get her canceled for that. Like,
well, it's interesting.
You're not sympathetic if
they
your
want to
people are
cancel
getting
other
roasted
people for
it.
their ideology, but you have to accept their ideology. It's like, wait a second. That's disingenuous. That makes me think that you're not playing the same game that the rest of us are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so don't do that, Republicans. Be the bigger man. Keep your dignity intact.
Yeah. So on to the last part of the show here. We got David and I's thoughts to close it out. And I guess we're all conspiracy theorists now. Not just the left for, the things they pick to be conspiracy, to think there's a conspiracy about versus the things that they ignore is hilarious to me. But even that aside, the stuff that we talked about, the timeline of events and the fact that now conspiracies, the timeline of when those go from conspiracy to fact is shortening by the day. Everybody is on that bandwagon now. First, we have a tweet from Eric Prince, and if that name is not familiar to you, he was actually the founder or co-founder, at least, of the private military group Blackwater. Now, they've been in some trouble in the past for some of their activities in U.S. theaters of war over time, but at the end of the day, Prince, who was a special operator himself and obviously employs them in his group, is pretty well versed in security and what needs to be done and all of that kind of stuff. And so he had a rather lengthy tweet, which I'm not going to read here, but basically the gist of what he's trying to say is don't trust the Secret Service. You should probably think about getting private security, maybe him and his team, but he breaks it down and makes the point about governments fail because they're not supposed to get results. These are incompetent people, and that's by design. So don't want to take it from Dane and David, take it from Eric Prince.
Maybe Peyton Manning's team, maybe. That's all I could hear when he said. You might want to think about getting another team in there. It's like, maybe Peyton Manning's team. If you get that reference, get down in the comments and you're a legend. If you're a
legend.
You get that reference.
So yes, on that point, couldn't agree more. Private security is the way to go. Although shortly after this event, Trump tweeted on his platform, Truth Social, that this means that RFK should now have Secret Service. And to his credit, he actually did get it. So good on Trump for saying that about somebody who is a political opponent. God knows Biden wouldn't. But Biden did actually capitulate under that weight and assign Secret Service to RFK. Although I'm not sure that that's much of a win in light of what happened. I think RFK should keep his private detail and just do that.
Especially if you believe the story that he told about his father's security detail.
Yeah. Listen, if the Secret Service is going to be on your detail, have them supplementary. Maybe it's good to have more guns around you. Yeah, but they shouldn't be. I think what's amply clear now is they should not be involved in strategic planning, where to station people, what, points to look out, choke points to look out for, all of that, sort of strategic stuff. Leave that up to the private guys. But the plot gets thicker with Matthew Crooks himself, because you will be surprised to learn that, oddly enough, he was not featured. It wasn't like he was the star of the ad, but he appeared in an advertisement for BlackRock. Yeah, the mega investment firm, I think the largest investment firm in the world, in a 2022 ad. Now, they've since pulled the ad, but as sometimes we say on this podcast, like coincidence in government doesn't exist. What do you think are the odds, David? If you was a betting man, what are the odds that the would-be assassin appears in an ad a couple years before?
I haven't done the due diligence on this, but I did hear on a couple of different platforms that not only was he in that commercial, but also the building that he shot from may or may not have been owned by BlackRock. So if both of those things are in play, then I would say, even if the building's not owned, it certainly doesn't look good. It definitely doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So, but it does kind of, and again, we've been saying it for years, if you thought Biden was running the country, you've been mistaken. Then the question always turns into, well, who is? Well, we might have gotten a big shining example of who that might be. Just throwing it out there, just pushing it out there, just like you pushed the idea that it was glass that hit Donald Trump, or maybe he had a razor in his pocket and did some WWE. Just pushing that out there, just for your thoughts and consideration.
Yeah, and I don't have further confirmation of this other than to say that there is a BlackRock affiliated investment firm that actually took out some short interest on Trump's Truth Social before the event. Now, how much money was made or not made, they probably lost money when he survived it, but the fact that the short position was taken out shortly before the actual attempt, and
gosh,
again, affiliation with BlackRock and all of that kind of stuff, it's like, listen, like I said, everybody has their line. For me and David, it's probably a handful of coincidences or less. If you stack 1 or 2 or 3 on top of each other in a particular event, you're going to start to get suspicious. And eventually,
27, 31?
Eventually, yeah, like the Clinton body count, right? How many coincidences do you need? Eventually, everybody has a line where they're like, all right, that's too many coincidences. There's something here. I may not be able to fully explain all of the ins and outs of what's going on, but there's something here.
But whatever they're telling me is going on is not what's going on.
Yes.
Put it that way.
On one end of the spectrum is David and I. It only takes one or a couple coincidences to get to that point of, I don't trust what the fuck's going on here. Some people, it takes substantially more. And there are some people that are just hopelessly lost. They usually wear masks when they're driving alone, and they keep their fists at 10 and 2. Yeah. They're not
coming back.
They're what we like to call coincidence theorists, in the sense that they will take as many coincidences and even create or pass off as coincidences things that are very clear and obviously not coincidences, in order to avoid the truth of what's going on before them. So, like I said, how much of this BlackRock stuff is a part of it, I don't know. I guess we're just putting it out there to say that these things actually happen, and you decide.
We told you the liberal side of the conspiracy theories, so we're going to tell you the other side of the conspiracy theories.
Now, in terms of the establishment's conspiracy theory, because again, despite their nice fancy suits and titles and ability to rule your life from behind their desks in Washington, they are not immune from this too, because they have come out and said, it's Iran's fault. Absolutely no evidence whatsoever for that, but they want you to know. It's kind of
like when we blamed Iraq for 9/11.
It's exactly like blaming Iraq for 9/11.
Like, fucking Hussein was going what? He was like having dinner. Like, what the fuck they just say?
Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Dane, David,
doubt it.
You've told us what everybody else thinks. We want to know what you think. And all I'll say is this, without comment.
Oh God. I didn't know I didn't know Crooks had Indian descent.
For our audio only listeners, it's a funny meme about Pocahontas, and it says, "How big of a conspiracy theorist are you?" And then it says me, Elizabeth Warren, in a picture next to Crooks, and there's a lot of facial similarities there. I'm just saying. They even have the same taste in glasses. So listen, I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
All you white people look alike. That's it.
That is true. That is true. So listen, no matter what the case is, folks, I want to leave you on a positive note. Okay? that the FBI is on the case. Okay?
Oh, thank heavens. I was just about to have a panic attack. But
the institution that helped Hillary Clinton manufacture the Russiagate hoax, the same institution that raided Mar-a-Lago, the same institution that couldn't figure out how one guy in the Las Vegas shooting took up hundreds and hundreds of pounds of guns, allegedly,
the same
in a hotel room without being spotted.
That had 51 of its members.
Yes.
That signed off that the computer, that the Hunter Biden laptop story was just bullshit, Russian disinformation. The same motherfuckers that have only solved one crime since the introduction of the Patriot Act, which it was a crime that they created and just pulled a little 16-year-old fall guy into it. And when he tried to back out of it at the last second, they forced him to do it. He finally dials the number and they're like, "We got you, motherfuckers." Like, wait, what?
The same institution that, through diligent reporting on this here podcast, has many times has a long and sordid track history of fabricating evidence in order to manufacture convictions for people that probably didn't do it. That institution, the FBI, is on the case, ladies and gentlemen, and they will get to the bottom of this. They will get to the bottom of the Secret Service failures, who Matthew Crooks was, who was behind him, who was behind forcing Joe to step down and handpicking Kamala, who was behind all of it. The FBI will figure it out, and I'm sure will report to the American people post-haste. So,
thank God, Dane. At least we ended on a somewhat high note. Well, with all that being said, we have gone. We had a little extra this week because we missed last week. We had a little extra zhuzh.
We owed you. And listen, David, I think that an extra half an hour for the memes on
I think that was a very
historical event. It required some discussing.
It was very thorough, Dane. I think we needed this. We needed this catharsis. Yeah. Let it all out. But with all that catharsis being had, where can they find episode 204 of Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast?
You can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/204. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Odyssey. They can link up with us on our private members only Facebook page at $5 a month, $5 or more of a month of support. Just go to wmdpodcast.com, the support our work tab, to figure out how to donate. They can link up with us on X, Instagram, TikTok. They can jump in the comment sections of all those, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend and family about us, do all that algo food stuff. But they can also, and definitely need to, in case we're ever banned, go to the website, wmdpodcast.com, join the email list so they can always stay in contact with the show. And other than that, buy our merch, donate some Bitcoin to us. All that stuff is in links down below these videos. And again, we thank you for your service, which we know in our heart of hearts is much, much better service than the Secret Service gave Trump 2 weeks ago and probably ever will
You're
again.
Special service. You're not secret.
Yeah.
But anyway, with all that being said, guys, thanks for sticking around this far. And until next week, stay safe. But more importantly, stay free.